I am. I always act like it's like something like, okay, I'm already sorry. Okay, I always act like it's something like, oh, there's a reason why I didn't start right at 5. It's just because I'm never right there. Hi, Doug. Wait, let me check my connection. Hang on. Had a little trouble up. So glad I got a new chair. See, look, new chair. Woo! But I haven't put the foot thing on it yet, so I'm a little. Anywho, so if you see, it's not a California earthquake. Shouldn't even joke about that. It's my feet. Okay, a little TMI, but we're working on our setup. We're finally getting it together. We're going to start doing some really cool stuff in here. Some actually live music concerts. I'm not a musician, but I will be marketing that. And so we're setting up the studio. So it's really cool. And we're just kind of getting all these things. Hi, Cindy. It would be a director's chair, as a matter of fact. I'm a director, directing. So, and then I have like there's a table that I have this whole contraption on because I haven't still, you know, let's chat. Okay, so one of the hard things about trying to figure out how to do this is I need to be able to reach my computer in order to scroll so I don't miss your comments. I need a, did they make that? Remote, like, so I can scroll from a distance? I'm actually, hi Lolly, screenwriters everywhere, woohoo! So I'm looking, so I'm gonna, you know, okay, no, you don't know. Settle. You know, I'll be teaching kind of more. We're doing some more, I guess we just can't get enough. We're going to be doing some more kind of teaching videos. I have some things that arrived today that I almost got distracted by, but then stayed focused. Like an easel, like an actual teacher. So we're setting it up so that I can do, you know, more teaching from here. So I'm still trying to figure out, so I have like a cocktail table, literally, I'm not joking, right here, and it has a little footrest, so that's why it shakes sometimes, that's my feet. So that just, it was a really long way around letting you know what's going on. And then on that are literally two Amazon boxes that are then holding the computer. It's very high tech. So I'm trying to figure out ways that I can like make it so that I can use my hands and use the easel and stuff and still see your comments. So I'm still a work in progress, always will be. Just kind of getting used to that idea. So Bluetooth keyboard, yeah, that doesn't scroll. So anywho, thanks for this suggestion though. Keep them coming. Don't want to not, you know, shut you down. So hi Bonnie, how's the chair? It's so great. I love having a chair. Although it's just, you'll see if you watch the replay, a very long-winded explanation about how I don't have a footrest yet. I forgot to put it on. So, but it's cool because it also is technically a makeup chair actually, and a director's chair, but it has little pockets and stuff you can put things in. Okay, anyway. It's a webinar about a chair. Woohoo! So anywho, yeah. So today we are going to talk about story structure. Our new time, as you have discovered, is 5 o'clock. So very quickly, you know, we have two kind of simultaneous parallel lives here, which is Hollywood Gatekeepers and Hollywood Screenwriters. Hollywood Gatekeepers is where we are now. Yay! And we will share this into the group. Yes, Doug? So we share it into the group. We start on the page because you can't share from a group, technically on Facebook. And if you have friends that you think would benefit from these training sessions, we'd love for you to share them. So that's why we put it on the page. But they will, and then we leave it on the page for a little while so people can share it, but then we take them off the page and leave them, they live in the group. So you need to join the group. And if you haven't joined the group, why? So join the group so then there's a lot. You can scroll through. And also you can type in the search bar in the group, and you can type a topic like dialogue or whatever, and you know, like structure for today, and then any trainings that we have on those topics will pop to the top. Little tip. So I have friends with the last name Samira. So sorry if you see it shake every once in a while. That's just me bracing my foot on the thing that the computer's on. Okay. So then we have, so in Hollywood Gatekeepers, we do these trainings. We do have a paid course, which we basically is just a deeper dive, and you kind of get to things faster. I apologize for that. I forgot to turn my mail off. I don't believe in multitasking, so let me turn that off so it does not distract me. Thank you. And then, yay, thank you, sir. It's official. Well, Brenda Miller, hello. officially saying hello. So, and then we have the screen readers course, which you kind of like to think of it as being sort of the faster, deeper way to go. And so we do a lot in both. And so in the screen, we kind of base things that we're doing in here off of what we're doing in there. And this week, we happen in screen readers to be watching Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Such a great film. And actually, that film, well, no, I'm lying. Before I even say it, that's why I'm not going to say it. I'm kind of surprised actually that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is such a popular movie because it breaks so many screenplay rules. So that's why we are studying it in screen readers. And so because of that, we're studying structure. So we just, we add on to that and do some structure stuff in here. It keeps my brain a little bit, since I'm very easily distractible. Okay, so I don't know if you know who Jeff Walker is, but I'm constantly learning so that I can pass what I learn on to you so that you can create this fabulous writing career or a reading career or whatever it is, so you can learn how to do business online. And he's like the granddaddy of online marketing. And he has a squirrel cam when he teaches because he lives in Colorado and his business is in Colorado. So he literally has a squirrel cam so you can watch the squirrels. I think that's so great. He's awesome. Anyway, so you think I'm bad. Like he has a literal squirrel cam. Okay. And only it's chipmunks that show up. And Scruffles is nowhere. She's out in the office. She's sleeping. She's got a lot of sleeping to do. She's got to get ready for that nap. Okay, enough gabbing. So that's why we're talking about structure, and that's why we've moved the time, because every so often in the screen readers group, we pull everybody and we say, what time works for you? And then we base this off of that. So they come after you. Got it? I don't know if you need that information, but I don't know. I think knowledge is power, personally. So we're going to talk about structure today. You ready? You got your pens out, and actually you will have a handout. Shocker. But I will give you a handout later because I want to distract you. So plus you might come away with, especially because the way I tend to gabber, is that a word? Should be. You might take different notes that are relevant to you and not other people, or not ones that I might think to put in. So you should be studious. Why? I scoff at that, but you should be. That was fun last week, right? Okay, so in the coming weeks, I will be in LA and New York. It's looking like exciting. So, yeah, so I'll be doing some fun location stuff. Okay, anyway. So first thing, just a couple quick formatting things that you should know is that all screenplays are 1 minute per page. That is the basic general rule that screenplays are 1 minute per page. So if it's a 90-page screenplay, how many minutes? Can you do that math? 90 plus 0. So if it's 120 minute, if it's a 122-hour movie, it's a 120-page screenplay. That is very basic, very general, pretty much across the board. And it's a way, it makes it, make sure I'm scrolling. It's a way that, oh goodness. Well, hey there, hi guy, missing things. Okay, sorry. Maggie, Daniel, nice to see you guys. Scrubbles, Scrubbles. Okay, yes, very cool, New York. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I'm excited to be here today. I missed you guys throughout the week. Anyway, so yes, 12 points. So 90 pages, so a minute per page, and that gives readers and anyone a really easy way to judge whether or not the screenplay, when you first get it, whether it's printed or, you check the page count. And believe me, that was one of the first things that people do when they're deciding whether or not they want to do your movie, is check the page count. I know that sounds really petty, but it gives you an idea if the person, right out the gate, you kind of know if this person gets it, And if it is, it doesn't mean that you're disqualified or whatever. It's not even really, unless it's a contest, literally. They'll actually say it has to be, they get parameters. And they're usually pretty wide. They don't even say, a lot of contests don't say it needs to be 90 to 120 pages, which is the typical, movies are typically an hour and a half, and genre-wise it changes. So like a horror film and a comedy they're usually shorter than, and you just look at movies, you can see that. And, action adventures, although nowadays they've become so massive with so many stars in them, they're getting longer, but they used to be short. But that trend's really kind of major right now. That action movies have gotten longer because they're just doing so much more within them. So yeah, an hour and a half, right, Cindy, is basically how long a movie is. So that's 90 minutes, 90 pages. Horror films typically run in that. Some contests will let you do like even 70 minutes. Well, I'll get to this in a minute. But then also they have an inch margin at the top. Pages of a screenplay have an inch margin. Not movies, have an inch margin at the top, on the right and on the bottom, and on the left it's an inch and a half to leave room for binding. So that's very standard across the gate, and then board, and then 12-point Courier font. Those are the kind of the three, and then there's lots of little things in there as in terms of where the actual character name should be and all that. I could go for a long time about formatting, but I'm not going to do that. So those are the three basic, like, need to have things. And the reason I really want to bring those up is more because this isn't going to be about formatting, but more so that you can really understand not to cheat. I mean, really, like, don't make your margins wider or smaller. Don't make your font bigger or smaller. It'll just, not only will they know and read your screenplay if you do that, but it'll peg you as an amateur or a cheater. Unless it's really, and it'll be obvious typically, because of all the other, I was going to say obvious as someone did that by accident, because all the formatting will be a mess. But if everything's right except the margins or the font, or people are like, come on now. And it's stupid. Like, why do that? You're going to get, we need to know how long your screenplay is. That's like a given. You need to know, like, how long is this movie? It's important. And you can't, these formatting things and rules are there because eventually you have a lot of people relying on that screenplay, right? You've got the costumers and the props and all these people, and they need to be able to go page 10 and everybody has the same page 10, right? It's like important. So that's why they number scenes later. So everybody knows scene number 221, we need these costumes, this makeup, these people, blah, blah, blah. So it does become important. As you're writing a screenplay, you do not include camera angles or scene numbers, just FYI as well. I didn't even put that down because that's not really what we're talking about. So I just wanted to put those out there more so that you know how long, because that does affect your format or your structure. But just to kind of get that in there too about, don't try to, you can't, they know. It's obvious. It's just one of those things of like, like when you see a little kid and they're like, or you see all those dog videos, did you chew up my shoe? The dog's like, it's that. It's exactly that. So just don't do it. I love that I have these so anyway. And then I see myself and go, oh no, don't do that. It's really, anyway, it's unnerving to have this stuff. That doesn't work though really for you. Okay, so 3 acts. Movies have 3 acts. Screenplays have 3 acts. Okay, and I'm going to preface all of this with, yes, people break these rules. Yes, some movies don't have 3 acts. They pretty much all have 3 acts. Even if it's hard to register or see what they're doing. It was a huge deal at 3 hours, Peggy, now scrolling. Okay, I know we did this last week. Is it Alicia? Okay, wait, no, I have to give you one choice. Or is it Alicia? Okay, so I'm going to start with, you tell me 1, 2, or 3. Not that I'll remember which one's 1, 2, or 3. Alicia? Spell it phonetically, there we go. Yes, director's cuts are usually longer. So there are 3 acts, and even if you don't think there's 3 acts, there's typically 3 acts. And even if they flash back and they flash forward and they jump around, there's still 3 acts. And I think that inherently in storytelling, there's 3 acts in life. There's 3 acts, beginning, middle, end, boom, 3 acts, right? I mean, in general, in sports, there's sports actually are usually split into 2s or 3s. So you've got even like 9 innings. There's the beginning innings, the middle, and the ending. It's like we have this natural sort of, that's how we tell stories, and that's how we sort of look at things, and that's how, there's good, better, best. It's like that's kind of a common thing. So there are 3 acts in your basic storytelling structure. There are 3 acts, back to Aristophanes and Sophocles and Tarantino, in that order. There's 3 acts. And Tarantino's a great example because he'll talk about it a lot. I mean, he breaks rules right and left, but he knows he's breaking them. And One. Oh, which was one? See, I told you I wouldn't remember. Don't break the rules until you know the rules. Would you add a change of view in scripts? No, you do not. So unless with a POV, that is considered a camera angle. So unless it's just so important and you can't think of another way to tell where to look, there's so many ways that you can get across where to look without putting a camera angle. You can say her eye twitches. I mean, knowing that we need to see that, the director will make sure we do by adding a camera angle. If you want a POV of the gun, you can say, like, you can say in the thing saying, the gun looms on the table. If you make it, if you do some verbiage in there that makes it like, we need to see this. Or you can do a character, you know, you could be setting up a character and you can say things like is it like, let's say the character knows that there's something there that they don't want the MacGuffin. Not gonna go off that. The character knows that the gun's over here, and so the character distinctly avoids looking behind the pillow. You know, the character can see that the gun is peeking out from underneath the blanket. So then we need to see that, and the director's going to come up with a way, because that's their job, and that they're much better at that than anybody else. So, and especially with the director of photography on board helping it out. So if you do, you can do that if you really feel like it adds some kind of punch, and you do it sparingly. POV is one of the only ones that you can do that. Or, I mean, if you are a writer-director, and so you'll see this when you read scripts that are written by writer-directors, all bets are off because it's your script. You can do whatever you want with it if you know you're going to direct it. But even then, so even when we interviewed Paul Haggis, and he talked about how he wrote and was planning to direct $1 Million Baby, but then he didn't, did he? Some other guy did. Some guy, this guy named Clint. So when he gave that script to him, I don't know. I'd be curious to know if that spec script had camera angles in it. But Clint also knows that he's a writer-director. But at the time, Paul was really well known for television. So it would have been, if he knew that he was going to give it to Clint, if it were me and I was known for directing television and I had Clint Eastwood thinking of reading my script, I'd go back through and do a draft without the camera angles just to say, that's up to you, you know, as a sign of respect. So that's another, yay, I'm glad it's what you wanted to hear. Most people are going, that's not what I want to hear. Yes, I'm Clint Eastwood, dude. So yeah, so you don't include camera angles, which gives you more room to write, right? Which is what your job is the writing part, unless you're a reader, then it's the reading part. So, and you know, I'll say this again at the end, but all of this is, you know, kind of my 2 cents on screenplay formatting and structure and that kind of thing, based from the perspective of a reader. And I had a really interesting conversation with a producer the other day, and she wanted to know, she's a really good friend, and she's never been a reader, she's only been a producer. And let's see, I'm trying to condense the story. She was looking at a script and she had to rate it as a reader would rate it. So she's learning, she wanted to learn more about the reader process so she kind of understand it better. And so she's, I don't know, trying to think of the best way. So anyway, she scales it and she gave it a 0.5. And I was laughing going, a 0.5? I said, you can't give it a 0.5. And she was correct. She's one of my best friends, right? So she is my best friend, actually. So we're laughing. And then she said, well, I gave him a 0.5 because they wrote a script. And I was like, right, but that a 0.5 would be incomprehensible. A script that gets a 0.5, like you can't tell which way is which. And she said, no, a 0.5. And she's arguing. I go, oh my gosh, you are arguing like a producer. And she said, oh, that's exactly what the person said that was showing her how to do it. And I was like, yeah, right, because I've worked as a reader for a long time, right? So we were cracking up because in her mind, she can only look at it from a producer. And so she's looking at, will I produce this movie? And the answer was absolutely not. But typically you need, readers need sort of a scale to start from. So they need a home base. So there is no, I mean, a 0.5 would be a script that's written in a narrative form that is included a cassette tape and a poster. Like, I mean, I laugh at that because that actually happens. But it's like really incomprehensible and you can't tell what's going on. So, you know, you need these gauges. So, and also you only get like literally maybe 5% of scripts that I've ever read have fallen into that category where it's just like the person has no clue like how to get their story across and you're like, what are you trying to say here? Like it's very rare. And it's also on the other extreme, it's very rare that you get one that's just like, Yeah, Elise. Okay, I'm just going to leave that one alone. You tell me if that's right. So anyway, that's kind of a long-winded thing to say that all of this is coming from a reader perspective. So there are many other people out there that dive into screenplay structure and formatting and like really teach screenplay writing. I don't really teach, I mean, I'm giving you the basics of what a reader looks for. It's a little bit different. And I'll give you some names at the end that you should study for, you know, real screenplay studying. So, but the basics. Act 1, first 10 pages. Act 1 is roughly the first 25 to 30 minutes. So how many pages? I love this map. Ah, look, I have arms. I can like make a point. The chair breaks. It had a big thing in it. Do not put too much weight on this chair. And I'm like, okay, anyway. Oh, and I started a health regimen this week too. So I'm working with Shift, which is amazing. And it's the trainer for J.K. Simmons, and she's awesome. So I'm taking her monthly thing. It's not like the private thing I'm sure he did, but it's like, you know, start. So you'll see a transformation. So anyway, first 25 to 30 pages is Act 1. First 10 pages, some of your most important pages in your screenplay are your first 10 pages. We could do a whole thing on the first 10 pages because it's so important. You really have to grab people in those first 10 pages. So in your first 25 to 30 pages, that's basically Act 1. In those first 25 pages, don't include too many subplots. Don't include too many characters. You want to get that protagonist out there so that we get to know that person, their general situation, what's going on in their life, what kind of person are they, and they're in crayon, exactly. In crayon with pictures and doodles on the side. Actually, I have seen a lot of picture doodle screenplays where people, but that's from people reading, and then I get it anyway. So yeah, first 20 to 30 minutes, basically kind of setting everything up, letting us know, because right, your protagonist is going to have to travel from one thing to another, right? They're going to have to start out as, you know, a mess and get their whatever groove back or whatever it's going to be. So we need to see where is that character starting out so they have someplace to go, and we're setting all that up. Don't put too much in there. Keep it simple. Simple, straight, good writing, straight to the point. Because right at about 20 somewhere, 25 pages, somewhere 20 to 20, 30, somewhere in there, depending on how long your whole story is, that's when what happens? Screenreaders? What's it called? Come on. Someone's got it. Right around 25, 30, page 25, 20, don't answer that. 20 to 25, something happens. Something spins us off into a new thing. And we studied The Wizard of Oz pretty deeply in the screenreader program because it's color-coded. Something happens that spins, you know, the first act is in black and white, second act's in color, third act's in gray, black and white. So something happens, and there's a word for it, and this is a pretty universal word that you'll hear everyone use for what happens. Michaela wins! You win! I don't have a prize for you, but I'll do a little dance. Yes, the inciting incident. Ding, 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 ding. Yay for Michaela. And she's even new. Yippee. So yes, the inciting incident. That's what that's called. And what that is the thing that shifts, that causes the character to go, holy WTF. Like to go like, what the hell? What's going on? That's the thing that happens, the inciting incident. So some example, oh, now I'm seeing it. Yay, Peggy. Woohoo, the tornado hits Dorothy. Exactly. And so I gave you some examples. Hancock, he saves the guy from the train. Peggy Sue got married. She goes back in time. Like, what are the things that happen? The Hangover, they wake up. And that's a really good example because the whole first act is, and it's very simple. They're setting up a lot, and they actually have, you know, it's an ensemble piece. So they have quite a few characters to set up. And so they get all these characters set up. You get their relationships. It's great that the wackadoodle Zach character is like, you know, the sister's brother, so it's not like he's part of the group. So they set up these great relationships, and then, you know, everything's hunky-dory, and they wake up the next morning and all hell's broken loose, and that is a great, one of the best examples. Thank you, Doug. And Peggy Sue Got Married is another really good example because she's, you know, her life's a bit of a mess. She's sort of tired and whatever when she first starts the film. She goes to her high school reunion. Oh, she gets dizzy. Isn't that amazing? That's all it takes to travel into time. And so then she goes back into time. Avatar, they set up this whole scenario of all the things that are going on in the military, and then he gets into the machine and We start his journey. So it's usually pretty obvious what that inciting incident is. Sometimes it can be a little bit odd. So like Michael Clayton is a good example because that's got some flashbacks, right? Flash forward and that kind of stuff. They're kind of moving their timeline around. But when his car explodes, everything changes, right? Suddenly it's like, oh crap. And then it flashes back to show how we got there. Not an unusual way of storytelling. So but it can make things confusing sometimes as to what the inciting incident is. Well, hi, Kevin Conklin. Holy smokes. What the hell are you doing here? I actually know him. I think it's you, right? It's the Kevin I know, right? I can't see your picture. Because, not that I know 100 Kevin Conklins. I only know one. He's pretty awesome. So anyway, so that's what an inciting incident is. So then we move forward. So that gets us into Act 2, right? So then Act 2, we're tripping along, and that's where you start getting interesting. And the thing that we don't want in Act 2 are, just like in people, we don't want saggy middles. So anyway, so in Act 2, that's when we start like introducing the subplots. You start introducing characters. You start like letting people talk to each other. You start like really things start happening in Act 2. And so Wizard of Oz is also a really good example because those characters are introduced. I mean, they're sort of introduced, in a cheeky way in the very beginning as their alter egos. But you meet, it just drives so beautifully, right? You meet who's first? You meet who's first? I should know this. You meet the Scarecrow, right? And then the Cowardly Lion, and then the Tin Man, I think. But you meet the three guys, and then you meet, the bad woman. And it's like things happen pretty, my brain's in a million different places. Pardon me. So you meet into your craziness. What are you saying exactly? Okay. So yeah. So then everything is kind of built out. You've got these, villains come into play, obstacles come into play, all of the things start meshing together in Act 2. And that builds to what's known as, screen readers, I'm like I told myself, Kevin will like this, I told myself I'll never be a teacher. And you know why? Because both my parents are teachers, were teachers. You write my own movies, you write your own, you're in film school, right on. You should be writing your movies. So this hopefully will help you out. And I'm curious to see, what film school are you in? So, David. So, I know David Johnson too, but I don't think it's you. Okay. I have to maintain. For those of you that are new, I sometimes lose my control and start laughing. Okay, so, and then in Act 2, all this stuff happens. It builds to, and there's many words for this, and there's many theories on how this comes about, but it builds to the crux, climax, whatever you want to call it. It builds plot point 2. It's like the move into Act 3. So, but it is not the Act 3 turning point. There is a huge shift that happens, which is kind of the climax of the movie, which is the big battle. In romantic comedies, it's often when they break up, and then that leads to the realization that, oh, they actually love each other, and that leads to a chase. Romantic comedies are really good ones to study for structure because they are so formulaic. So, it starts at the inciting incident. It's typically either they might break up in there, or they might meet each other, or something happens. This couple, their romance starts in some kind of way, or their relationship starts. Then they have all these obstacles and things that happen. It builds and builds, and then they break up, which is typically, or they lose each other, or something happens, or they realize that, oh, this is never going to work. And so then you've got this climactic kind of, it's usually about 10 pages, 15 pages of battles. Avatar, it's the big battle, then they're all battling each other. And then a lot of people confuse this and move it too far center. So this is like towards the end. Then you have Act 3, which is literally the wrap-up. It's really just a few minutes. So let's say in a romantic comedy, it's when they're chasing and chasing and chasing each other. So like in Bridget Jones, she's running after him down the street. Sorry. So she's running after him down the street. And then Act 3 is just, they come together. So Act 3 is really, really, really short. 230 pages. Yeah, you might want to trim that down. However, in David's defense, so I would much rather, as a reader, and most readers I think would agree with me, that if you see a screenplay that's 230 pages, you have something to work with and you're going to cut. It's much easier to cut it's much harder to embellish. So it's great. And if it's a first draft, awesome. Write, let it all out, and then go back. And that seems to be, in my super humble opinion, how to do it. Okay. Yeah. So like the avatar scene is a good one. That's a good example. In Hangover, it's when they're just like finally getting to the wedding and it's building up, and she might leave him, and there's all this chaos. It's usually the most chaotic point in the movie. And the really great way to think of the plot point 2 or mid-act climax or crux, it's called many different things, is that it's the point of no return. It's the point when in Hancock, it's when they're dying. Like she's dying, he's being killed, everything's falling apart. Like it's the point of no return there. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. It's like, that's when the twists come in. If there's twists, like that's just when all hell breaks loose, is kind of that mid-act climax, act 2. And then, yes, that is great advice. It is definitely easier to trim, and Bobby Musko and Paul Haggis said, cut some of the subplots. That's usually where you can begin, and keep it simple. Honestly, even if it's got twists and turns and it is very complicated, it's still very simple in terms of how many people there are to follow. Even the Matrix, which is really complicated and, you know, has some, you know, screwy things, it's not too many characters that you're following, and it's the really small amount of characters that are really driving it. So yeah. A cliffhanger still follows that same format. So you're still like, well, a cliffhanger, and in terms of cliffhanger, are you meaning that they're setting it up for a sequel cliffhanger? Or so sometimes a cliffhanger is when a movie ends without telling you the end, basically. That still will kind of, what will end up happening is that Act 3 is like very short. So the Act 3 is what, yes, 5 to 10 pages in Act 3. That's correct. So a cliffhanger would be that the resolution in Act 3 doesn't resolve, but there would still be the same structure format that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then something happens, and then it's like, oh, what happened? And so the resolution is still builds to that moment of like, you know, what happens to get you to the next thing? Except in a cliffhanger, that next thing is vague. So in Wizard of Oz, she clicks her, well, I don't know, I already said it, because we're studying that. That's one of our quiz questions, but clicks her heels 3 times, and boom, she's into the next thing. So how can you sell your movies to a company and still be able to help with the directing? Yeah, good luck. Okay, sorry, that was super, not a good way to say that. Okay, so this is not what we're talking about today, but I'll just go down a little bit. Basically, you got to get it first down into the right page count and that kind of thing. It's kind of an either-or. That's why I kind of like laughed at that, because it's a bit of an either-or situation where you either sell your movie, or if you're a brand new writer and you've never produced anything, then you can figure out a way to do it yourself. There are ways to do that and keep yourself on as a director, or typically you can sell it to someone else to direct, or there are ways that you can sell yourself as a writer-director, and it sounds like that's kind of, especially, yeah, you're in film school, right? So if you're in film school, they should have classes on this. I would hope that you should be like 101, how to promote yourself as a writer-director. I would still not include camera angles. I would still focus your screenplay in keeping it because in the right format and everything, and as though you are going to sell it and give it away. And it sounds like you're a writer, which is a writer is someone who just writes, write, and you're all should be writers. Like everyone you should just keep writing. The answer to everything is to keep writing. So if you're writing more than one thing, just like in the Paul Haggis example, he wrote $1 Million Baby, intended to direct it. Someone told him that it would never make any money, so he wrote Crash and said, for sure, I'm going to direct this, and I'm going to do it for low budget, which is one of the reasons. That's another thing. If you sell yourself as a writer-director, it keeps the budget low typically, because as long as you're willing to do it on a lower scale, that is one way that you can get it done. If the screenplay just, you can enter in contests, so you can get some social proof that you're winning contests and it's doing really well, get it on blacklist. There's ways that you can get your screenplay kind of noticed, and then gives you a little more leverage to be able to sell it as a writer-director. it's typically hard to do that because there's so many directors out there looking for projects that all they do is direct. And so they're usually the writer-director path is, like Doug says, is to produce it yourself and figure out ways to do that, which is a whole nother topic that we don't have time for today. So I hope that gives you kind of little, and if you're in film school, where are you taking film school? Then they should, as you move forward, and I'd be curious to know, you know, I have a degree, but it's in drama. So I'd be curious to know in film school, one of the things that drives me nuts about college in general is that often they show you how to do things, but they don't show you how to get a job. And so like I have a degree in drama. I moved up to LA. I had my first camera audition and they said, can you slate? And I was like, if you tell me what that is, I could. Like, I didn't know how to slate. That's like, I think we should learn two things as actors, how to slate and how to wait tables. But it is like, I didn't know what that was. And I was like, how could I have a degree in this with an emphasis in acting and not know what slating is? That's insane. And so I think, and I have a friend who has a master's in, and I say this in our workshop, she has a master's in counseling. She wants to be a therapist. And she has no idea how to get clients. Shouldn't that be a class? So anyway. Yeah, so I'm curious to know if in film school they have like how to sell your screenplay, I would think, and how to sell yourself as a writer-director. Shouldn't that be a class? So back to structure, a little bit of a thing. So, so in the plot point to climax, something also usually shifts. Some big thing happens. So in Avatar, he realizes he's been on the wrong side. In Star Wars, Force Awakens, is that right? Solo. Spoiler. And then, that's all I was saying. And in rom-coms, it's the chase. In most romantic comedies, there's some sort of chase. That's the big climactic moment. That leads us into Act 3. Act 3 is just the wrap-up. It's Peggy Sue in the hospital, realizing that she loves her husband after all, and him realizing that, you know, about how much he loved her, and him realizing how much she is the girl for him. And then they have the little twist of she opens the book, and it has an inscription to her that makes you think that, ooh, maybe she did travel, like maybe time did change her, you know, what happened there. So you can put little things in Act 3, but it's really just the resolution of what's happening. It's very, very, very short. In Hangover, it's, you know, he tells off his girlfriend in that beautiful moment, and then are they married? No, girlfriend, right? And then, or whatever it is, and then they find the pictures on the phone. So those are, you know, they're really small. I'm so glad, yay, that you love it. I love it too. Yay, Alicia, that's so cute. Yes, how to flip burgers, 101 for your acting majors. So yeah, so basically that's it in a nutshell. And so that's basically the elements of structure. I will add a handout to this post a little bit later once it's on and posted and everything that kind of just lays this out. It's pretty basic. And then if you are looking to really learn screenplay, there's so many teachers out there, and there's so many, and when we talk in screenreaders, we're gonna go through some of these, but there's so many different approaches to structure and formatting. And so check out Michael Haig, one of my favorites. Great guy, by the way, super sweet guy, and really smart, and I love his way of teaching. I love the way he structures things a little bit different. He still believes in the 3-act structure, believes in it, just like he believes the world is round. So, I was gonna go down, never mind. I'm not gonna go down the whole earth path. And then also, John Truby is another one. Save the Cat, he's awesome. Blake Snyder, and then Linda Aronson. These are all names, and they'll be in your handout as well. So those are people that, if you really want to dive in and study, I recommend, you know, just reading. We love Michael Haig. He's my favorite, I think. And you know, just partly because I just know he's so, I mean, they're all sincere, but he's just, and Blake is fun, like they're very different kinds of approaches. So as we launch our podcast, we're hoping to have some of these people on as guests as well. So, so yay, I'm glad it's informative. That's lovely. So yeah, there you have it. So that kind of gets you started. These are all, I mean, it's a pretty basic layout. And like, you know, we could do a whole thing on each one of these things of endings and plot points. Well, we did endings last week. So, and then next week we're going to talk about story distractions, like what gets a story off base and what distracts people and what makes it so the story doesn't work. Like what are some movies where we get distracted? So yeah, yay. So yeah, Blake is better for little nuggets, and he's just funny. Like he's fun. So yeah, and then there's also of course the hero's journey, Chris Vogler, who's like one of the basics. So there's many though. Just Google it. You will be like. So that's basically it on story structure. So good to see you guys. We will be back, same bat channel next week, 5 p.m. California time, and then yeah, cool. We got big plans. Glad to have you here. We will see you next week. Right on. Good to see you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.